Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, I'm Carin Forman, Global Partner Lead for Media Supply Chain and Archive at AWS. I focus on partner strategy and enablement. I have the absolute pleasure today to be joined here with my co-host, Dr. Karen Hildebrand, and our GenAI partners, TwelveLabs and DeepDub.
Super excited to join you here today, Karen. It is fantastic. I have never hosted a AWS episode with somebody with the same name as me. This is fantastic that we have two of us here. So Industries Live goes live every other week. So mark your calendars now. We will be back 2 Tuesdays from now at 8 a.m. Pacific time. So for those of you who are joining us, make sure that you mark that down. We are going to be streaming with a number of different partners throughout this year. So today's partners are going to be focused on media and entertainment, but really their applications can be used across every industry. And then 2 weeks from now, we'll be talking about financial services. So make sure that you mark that down and come back and join us. And with that, my name is Dr. Karen Hildebrand. I lead our partner solutions architects across a number of different industries, from financial services to healthcare and life sciences to telecommunications and media and entertainment, games and sports. And it is great to be here today with two of our partners from the media and entertainment segment. And for those of you who are joining us, please drop in the chat where you're joining us from. We love hearing where our guests are joining us and what you're interested in. If you have questions, make sure you type them in as well. And with that, let's bring our first partner guests on from TwelveLabs. Awesome to see you, Soyoung and Travis. Maybe we can get a brief intro from each of you. Soyoung, do you want to start us off?
Yeah. Hey, everyone. Thank you so much for having us, Karen and Karen. I'm Soyoung. I'm one of the co-founders of TwelveLabs, where I lead go-to-market. Brief overview of TwelveLabs is we are a company that builds multimodal foundation models for video understanding. These are AI models that can see, hear, and understand videos just like humans can. So you can semantically search across petabytes of video, automatically summarize, create highlights, chapters from video, and so on.
That's phenomenal. Go ahead, Travis.
Hey, everybody. I'm Travis Couture. I'm the Director of Solutions Engineering here at TwelveLabs. So I spend a lot of time with our customers, taking the models that Soyoung sort of just described and their product form and applying them to the use cases and challenges that customers are looking to solve. And that will range all the way from sort of identifying the core issues to implementing and productionizing some of these workflows within the M&E space. And the secondary function to that is to work very closely with the customers to identify what they're really interested in doing beyond the initial use cases and making sure that our product aligns with their goals going forward in the future, and sitting pretty closely with our science, product, and engineering teams to make sure that that happens.
Very
That's
cool.
Great. Sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
That's great, Travis. Lovely to hear. And welcome to some of our of the people joining we see from Canada and Charlotte and globally around the world. Karen was saying that, we focus on media strategy, and in my role, I focus also on MEGs, media, entertainment, games, and sports. And the use case that you all talk about here today about metadata enrichment and enhancing your content for search and discoverability. Can you tell us a little bit about what trends you're seeing in this space for our MEGs customers in media, entertainment, games, and sports?
I think for a very long time, it's almost been a default that video is challenging to search for. And of course, it takes time to review video, to watch video. If you think about the thousands of hours of footage that holds such valuable stories in different shapes and format, and if you want to access and utilize the best moments inside, then it's typical that our customers would have had some process to manually tag and log what's happening in footage. The trends that we see today are, number one, how do you make these large libraries of content, whether these are dailies, sports archives, news archives, easily searchable and accessible, simply using natural language, so semantic search, to find exact timestamps, exact moments across these libraries. And the secondary beautiful use case that comes out of that is you're more directly able to utilize your library, whether it's to create highlights, to repurpose stories that you have already existing in your archives, and the almost human-like interaction with your content gives you access to be able to do that.
And Travis, you had a a key point there when you were doing your intro of like, you have the initial use case, but once you actually have a customer getting started, they typically have more than one that they're imagining. What are those typical kind of add-on use cases that you see, or are they all distinct?
Yeah, so I think to So Young's point, right, video has long been such a problem that most people have become sort of numb to what you might be able to do with it or want to do with it. So when we start working with customers, typically, right, the one that pops up right away is this just, semantic search of my archive. And customers sort of start thinking in that new mindset. And once you get there, you're able to then say, well, what could I actually build if I had this type of semantic search? So we have some customers that are building out, workflows that allow them to edit rough cuts together from entire storyboards, essentially. So not really, replacing the creative process, but I don't really know of a lot of people that enjoy retrieving footage from an archive and right it taking hours and then doing that over a narrative style structure as well, too, right? There's an overarching sort of theme that you want to aggregate all of these scenes together. Some of the other use cases typically start to involve around hyper personalization or like contextual recommendation, potentially in some cases, right, to fan or direct consumer facing applications. So what would happen if you could, have a sports fan create their own personalized highlight reel of their favorite player every time they come into the app or something like that? So those are sort of the secondary use cases that I think are, the dream scenario or North Star for a lot of our customers. And building out the internal ones first with just being able to source the footage from your archive allows them to take something that would otherwise be very abstract to a lot of the internal stakeholders within their organizations and create a very concrete MVP internally that makes that dream scenario much more tangible or realistic for a lot of the people that they're working with within their organization.
So continuing to go on that theme, Travis, Gen AI is really changing the way customers can access their content. You and Soyoung talked about accessibility, discoverability, and content highlights. Can you speak in a little bit more detail about some of the pain points or use cases that you see arising in your customers? And Dr. Karen Hildebrand also shared how some of these use cases build upon each other by having access to your archive, enriching your metadata, you get those content highlights. Can you speak to, again, some of those, what those customers are seeing in these pain points and how these challenges are being solved with Gen AI?
Yeah, so I think traditionally, and I actually felt, I'll use an example. I felt really bad when I saw this. We went on site to a customer and their team was essentially like sifting through their footage by, I'm not exaggerating, I think this is the exact number, doing Command F through 9 different Excel spreadsheets, essentially. So they would, Command F in the first one, find the asset ID there, and then pop it over to the other one and go back and forth. And if at any point in time, what you were looking for was not in, it wasn't Command F-able, essentially, right? It's not an exact keyword match. The chain sort of terminated there, and then you were just sort of left in the wilderness to go do whatever it is that you wanted to do. And that would end up artificially inflating their sort of editorial process, right? To, in some cases, multiple days of work, simply just to like get the footage that they know is probably there somewhere, but you have to go and find it first. And that's for newer footage. I think historical footage is even more of a problem because it's even less, annotated or visible in terms of the information that is exposed or on it. We have some customers that are, concerned that they're storing like hours and hours of colored bar test footage, essentially, right, in their archive or something like that. And all of these are multiple different mini pain points that traditionally you might have to apply specialized, computer vision techniques or something like that to go in and solve each one of these. And the idea with, these video foundation models that we're building is you can do all of that from a single processing of all the video. And then you can dynamically sort of request whatever use case it is you have at the time without having to reprocess the video. I think this is especially important with video content because it's such a monster data source to deal with and move around. Nothing with video is painless, right? Like PDFs and things like that are a little bit more manageable. But with video content, when you do something, you want to be very deliberate about what it is that you're doing, because to do it again in the future, right, is going to be exponentially more, costly and time consuming.
So Young, how does TwelveLabs think about it then? Now we know what the customer problem is, and I think I'm going to borrow that statement of Command F-able. I think that That's really great. I'm going to find everything just by a text prompt. That's a really great description of like, okay, yes, we all have done that in a spreadsheet, but that's not the best way of doing it anymore. So how does TwelveLabs think about this? How do you approach it?
Yeah. So we started building what we call multimodal video foundation models. And what these models can do are, so we have two models, Marengo and Pegasus, and we do have a short video to show you exactly what it does live. But for Marengo, what it does is almost like a human. It will very quickly watch a video, and we call this an indexing process. And it's almost creating a memory of everything, of all the context semantically that's in video. So everything that it sees, everything that it's hearing, whether it has language or it's music or background sounds, putting all of this together in the context of how things are also changing over time, because temporal understanding is also a unique aspect of video that makes it really difficult, because how different moments are stitched together, past and present, will tell a different narrative. And so the Marengo model will create this memory of the content, and the output of this is something we call embeddings, which are numerical representations of this context. You can create embeddings from video, image, audio, and even text. And Marengo will allow you to use natural language, image, or even a video segment to find contextually relevant moments across petabytes of a video library. So it's very typical that a customer will, as step one, they will run an archive of content using Marengo to be able to search their footage. The second model that we have is Pegasus. And Pegasus is really cool because now you can also interact with your content and language, almost having a conversation. So now that you've created a memory of the content, think of this as your reasoning on top of it. So if you want a summary in 100 words or less, you can ask the model to summarize that video in that format. If you're trying to create a Twitter or X post or something that describes what's happening, that's also something that you can prompt the model for. The most common use cases that we see with Pegasus is video description generation and generating metadata in any format that you need. So if a customer typically has kind of schemas or taxonomies that they are using for their content management, then at any given moment, as long as the content has been processed, they can pass in any number of prompts to be able to extract metadata of their choice.
Wow, that's incredible. Maybe this is maybe a great time to go to the demo and have you share with us sort of for our audience exactly the functionality of the TwelveLabs Marengo and Pegasus model.
I always love a demo. I think it makes the actual application much more real. And I do want to say, I've called this out in our green room as we were getting ready today. I played with your playground all weekend, and it was super fun. So anybody that is actually joining us today, I would absolutely call that out. Go check out their playground. It is super easy to use and get started. I took my kids rowing videos and actually was able to find the moments in their rowing videos that I was looking at for clipping and being able to put into their highlight reels. So it was really intuitive, and I felt successful in like literally 10 minutes. So now I do realize I do have a doctorate in artificial intelligence. You do not need that. You do not. So just go ahead and get started. We do have a actual viewer question here that I think is a really interesting one, which is it possible to use your solution for industrial defects detection? I don't know why not. So maybe are those use cases that you're seeing as well that are outside of the traditional M&E space?
Yeah, so I think we actually have a number of what I would call interesting verticals that are somewhat similar to this question. So we've had some customer interactions in things like manufacturing and automotive, which probably fit nicely right into this defects use case. There are reasons right why you might want to on the manufacturing line, help with QC or QA. What I sort of say for these types of things, one is the best place to start, like Karen mentioned, is maybe just go to the playground since it's free to sign up and throw some footage in that is very similar to your use case and give it a try and see if you can find the things that you're interested in finding. Outside of that, if you're sort of seeing that, there are good results in some cases, but not others, the way I would encourage you to think about it are what we call the base models, which are the models that you have access to for free, right? When you sign up for the playground, are sort of like the average person that you might pick off the street. And if you ask them the same question, right, what kind of reasonable response would you expect from them? If the answer is they probably wouldn't be able to answer this question, then that makes this use case a great scenario for something like fine tuning, where we're able to sort of take the domain knowledge or domain expertise specific for that type of use case, which maybe, defect detection and, the silicon and CPUs or something crazy like that, which the average person would not know how to do, but we can fine tune the model to understand that domain knowledge so that you have a customized version of the foundation models that we're building here to then apply to that use case and footage.
You're speaking to my background there. I came from semiconductor, where we did a lot of above visual analysis for anomaly detection in the actual semiconductor manufacturing process. So there you go. Soyoung, you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I just wanted to add. I think it's a really great question, especially because given that the given topic of the day is media and entertainment, I think the question of manufacturing also demonstrates the broadness of where video lies. And almost every industry and every business today is very much video driven, right? And so it's also very important that the foundation model can watch and comprehend many different types of content, whether it's film, whether it's ads, it could be, of course, sports, news, and even your dash cam footage, right? And be able to comprehend it in a way that then allows you to utilize that context. So that broadness and horizontal applicability is something that's also pretty important in the way that we think about the roadmap and how we build our models.
Yeah, I know that I'm going to be using this. I know later on in what we call at AWS EBCs, executive briefings. And so we are talking a lot about biosecurity for specific use cases and proving whether somebody has washed their hands before they're working with a specific agricultural commodity, for example, is one of the use cases that you can actually find the video stream. And again, I cannot shout out enough to the playground. It's easy to upload an example, even create an example with Nova Reels of it actually happening, upload that and see whether it can detect it. It's really a neat way to actually get hands-on.
And I want to second that with regard to what Soyoung you were saying about the different asset types. We get a lot of requests at AWS from our customers for theatrical footage, episodic, even social content and content as Dr. Karen Hildebrand was saying, from other industries like manufacturing and fintech that have video content. Tell us what your customers are seeing. You have some very notable sports customers.
Yeah.
Speak a little bit to sort of how they're using your models and how they're seeing benefits and savings from the use of the Marengo and Pegasus model.
Yeah, absolutely. And sports is so interesting because even within sports, it's not just one type of footage. It's all different camera angles. It's looking at the game, but also interviews or documentaries. Even within a single category of media you see such diversity of content types and context, which is why the almost human-like contextual understanding is so critical. So I saw somebody was from Canada. One of our customers is the Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment Group, and we started working with them on they are incredible innovators, and we started working with them on use cases to understand archives and to understand kind of videos that they have to enable semantic search. And step one was, how do we get this integrated into now, like the end users? How can we make the search really easy? And it's also very representative of how we work with other sports customers, which is step one, as we mentioned before, is always starting from where the video library is. It's very common that most media organizations will have a media asset management platform that they are using. And so for TwelveLabs, you understand what the AI does, what the model does. But the actual interface, though we have a playground that makes testing really easy, is through APIs. And so for us, it's very important that we're bringing the model to where the end users are interacting with their data even today. So whether that is an NLE, so it's your editing platform, whether it's your media asset management platform, it could even be a consumer app, or it could or a fan-facing app if you're trying to bring these capabilities directly to your fans and viewers. The APIs will allow you to bring that experience to any application. And so it's a very, very cool use case. Actually, Travis can share a few really great examples on it. That goes from search and searching and kind of tagging the archive to secondary use case of being able to create personalized highlights at scale across the library so that you're able to tell really personal stories to fans. Yeah.
Yeah. So being able to take the same workflow or models that are powering some of the internal editorial workflows and thinking about exposing that in some fashion to end users is like in sort of taking the internal editing team and scaling them up 1,000x or whatever it is, because now your editors are your end customers essentially, or something like that, where they can be the ones that are sort of in control of, to a certain extent, generating the content that they're interested in consuming without too much effort on the user side, right? Because you don't want to have the user invest a ton of time into generating these things that they want to see. They just sort of want to have the content. And I think the really interesting way to think about that is a lot of times archives are seen as, let's say, cost centers, right? We have to sort of keep this footage around because we don't know if we'll need it. Maybe we'll need it. And so, it sort of just sits there and isn't necessarily accessed all the time. If you expand out the number of people that are interacting with the archive, the likelihood that the majority of the content is going to get reused or repurposed is significantly higher. And suddenly you started to shift, the archive from a cost center to potentially, like a revenue center or profit center, which is really awesome because now the cost that you initially invested to produce that footage, you get sort of continual potential ROI on that. As things sort of get accessed by the end users, which ideally, would be sort of, I think, the end scenario for a lot of companies or enterprises that have, direct consumer businesses, which, is the majority of the M&E in sports and entertainment space.
Yeah, increasing their usability makes a lot of sense. Go ahead, Soyoung.
I was just going to add one thing, which is and as consumers, we're so used to very specific stories that resonate specifically with ourselves, right? The same sports highlights of players that resonates with me is going to be very different from everyone else's. And so the more you're able to personalize, whether it's trailers for film or older titles, it could be for sports, the more you're be able to create and kind of bring back and tie it to what's current, the more personalized and resonating you can be with audiences all over the world.
I think that makes a lot of sense. We do have one more question that came in from LinkedIn here. Can we use Marengo and Pegasus for backwards video tagging, saving only the tagged events in archive and then get rid of the rest?
Yes. And I actually think what I would call, these reverse pass use cases are interesting. So you can, for example, take Pegasus, which is our video to text model, with the list of metadata that's already attached to that asset and put that in along with the input prompt, which you might have something like, take a look at this, list of metadata, look at the video content, and then remove all the metadata items that are actually not relevant or erroneous for this piece of content. Most likely because, maybe humans went through and tagged it and they fat fingered something, or, there was noise in there that got added that wasn't supposed to be there. So you could, actually go through and remove or get updated list of metadata for the assets. I think another interesting one that's sort of related to that, which is the reverse of what I think we originally anticipated, which was the forward version of it would be looking for content to make sure, right, that you might want to license, essentially. And the reverse of that is, hey, we're about to publish a piece of content and we're using footage from somebody else. Can we make sure that we have the license to use that footage? And so you might need to do like a video to video search as opposed to a text to video search. So taking, that video subject and searching in your licensed archive or something like that to make sure that you actually have that video there and it wasn't pulled from somewhere else accidentally.
I thought it was interesting, Soyoung, of what you said about the strategic value chain of working with your MAM partners or some of your other downstream partners to make that content more accessible. I had the absolute pleasure a few weeks ago to sit on a panel with somebody from Maple Leaf Sports Entertainment Group and the MAM partner to talk about that search and discoverability. And the number of use cases that they shared about the personalization and what they can do was really tremendous. Can you share any insights that some of your customers have shared with you about what they're saying about some of the additional benefits that your solution is providing?
Yeah, of course. So it's interesting. I think, and this is just averaging out, and some of the common things that we hear. To tag content takes a lot of time, right? To tag content, it would take about, actually, to do it really well after a game, and I'll use sports as an example, it would take about anywhere from 16 to 30 hours to tag a game because you actually have many different camera angles. With foundation models, it can take maybe 10 minutes to index, to create this memory of your content. So there's immediate efficiency in terms of, okay, now you can actually spend the attention on something, on actually be creating content or to be able to ideate on what to create, right? And the secondary secondary kind of benefit here is the actual accessing of content. Because just because you tagged it, I think Travis described it very well, which is something we hear quite often, doesn't mean it's always searchable. And so while you sit on kind of keywords or a lot of tags or a lot of metadata, it may not necessarily mean at the moment when you need to utilize a piece of asset because it's current and it's contextually relevant, doesn't mean you'll be able to access it. And so to make that search happen within a sub-second and giving that power to the people who are creating means that you can almost create at the same time you're ideating. And this is not going to get you to a perfect version because really what you're doing is searching and stitching together just moments. But it will help you get to numerous iterations and numerous versions. Another example, and this is with a South Korean broadcaster, they're a major broadcaster called SBS, along the same vein, but it's a different type of content, is VFX search. And so every time they're creating like visual effects, they need to go into the past library and archives to look at what they've done in the past and to make comparisons. And this is also a very tedious exercise of having tagged all of it, and then secondly to sift through all of those tags, and to find kind of past examples of what they had done to make sure they're matching it, right? And so this is similar to sports in that you're giving the tools to creatives to actually spend that time to be making as many iterations and iterating on as many ideas as possible, which then obviously is going to lead to best output because creativity is fueled from iteration. So I think those are the things that we see very commonly across the different sectors of media, whether it's sports, whether it's film, whether it's news.
Okay, 30 minutes went way too fast. I cannot believe we are near the end of the first 30 minutes. For everybody that's watching, we have another 30 minutes that we're coming up after this. But with that, Soyoung, Travis, everybody that's watching today, what are the things that you want them to take away from this 30 minutes and what's next? How do they get started?
Yeah, I would say follow your advice, Karen. Go to our playground and sign up. You get 10 free hours of content to upload. Throw some of your content in there, content you like and enjoy that you know well, and just start playing around with it. I think a lot of this doesn't really fully click until you get hands-on. And then after that, definitely reach out to us if you have questions or, want to start looking at, taking this to your your own content internally and looking at doing like a POC or something like that.
Soyoung, anything you want to add on?
No, I think it all starts. I think it's really fun if it's a personal exercise. So actually, even our enterprise customers will actually start with the content that's personal to them, because then it gets really fun, like you said, Karen. So just getting hands-on would be our biggest advice.
Awesome. All right, Karen, I think we better wrap this half of the episode up. And thank you, TwelveLabs, for joining. I know there's many customer questions that are still coming in. Please keep them coming. And Karen and I will keep following up on those as well. So keep them coming. You can find Karen and I and Soyoung and Travis on LinkedIn as well if you have direct questions after the episode too.